Hello, travelers. On a recent trip to Dallas, we visited the National Videogame Museum in Frisco. This museum is dedicated to preserving and showcasing the history and culture of video games, and it features interactive exhibits, educational programs, and a retro arcade. Admission is $12 for adults and $10 for kids. As part of that admission price, you get 4 arcade tokens to use in the arcade. Upon entering the museum, you're presented with the Timeline of Consoles wall. It features consoles made in the 70s all the way through to the present day. You know, I think we might have played some of these consoles. Did you spot some of the more well-known ones, like the ColecoVision or the Atari 2600? They even have a Nintendo PlayStation prototype from the early 90s. A little over 200 of these prototypes were created, but most were destroyed after the partnership between the companies fell apart. Near the console wall is an area that's dedicated to controllers throughout the ages. From Atari's joystick and one-button combo to the Duck Hunt gun and N64 controllers, there's plenty there to see. There are also development systems on display for various consoles. These development tools ranged from modified consoles to emulating the hardware's processes. You might also spot some odd-looking cartridges. The brown box was the pioneering 1967 prototype for the world's first home video game console. It allowed users to play interactive sports and action games directly on standard television sets. There was no sound, and the images were displayed in black and white, and plastic color overlays hung on the TV screen and were included with games for the system. The prototype was eventually licensed to Magnavox, which mass-produced it in 1972 as the Magnavox Odyssey, the first commercially available home video game system. Anyone up for some Donkey Kong? There's also some early prototype systems for the Xbox, Dreamcast, and PS2. Can we take a peek inside of Activision's business plan? Also on display in multiple areas of the museum is T's favorite handheld, the Lynx. Dev kits are also on display for newer systems, think early to mid-90s. One of these is the Net Eurose. It allowed everyone to be a third-party developer for the PlayStation and cost roughly $750 in 1997. Anyone with a PC or Mac, and a nice chunk of change, could develop games for the PlayStation system. Before there was the Game Boy, there were single-game handheld devices. The first single-game handheld was created in 1976 and was Mattel's Auto Race. Most of the handhelds displayed here are from the 80s. The Game Boy was first released in the US in 1990. While not Nintendo's first handheld, it was their first one that used cartridges. It featured a dot matrix display, black and white graphics, an 8-bit processor, and a Game Link cable which enabled multiplayer connectivity and data transfer between devices. The TurboGrafx 16 is a classic 16-bit home console released in 1989. While it didn't catch on in North America, it is legendary for its massive Japanese library, its use of credit card-sized game media called HuCards, and being the first console to utilize CD-ROM technology. The Turbo Express was a handheld portable version of the TurboGrafx and was able to play all the TurboGrafx 16's HuCard games, and it featured a backlit color LCD screen and optional TV tuner. Hey Game Boy, why didn't you start out with a backlit color screen? Many accessories were created along the way to enhance gameplay. The Power Glove was an early attempt at motion control, but it was difficult to use. The Joy Board was a balance board created for Atari in 1983, and it would later inspire Wii's balance board. And hey, Samba de Amigo, I see you! E.T. the video game was released in 1982 and is often blamed for the video game crash. Atari held unrealistic expectations for sales based on the success of the film. Negotiations for the game rights ended in late July 1982, which gave developers just over 5 weeks to develop the game so that it would be ready for the Christmas season. The game received negative reviews and is often cited as one of the worst video games of all time. The video game crash occurred in 1983. While there are many conspiracy theories, the truth is that the market had become too saturated with different consoles and computer systems. Gamers had to choose between 8 different consoles and 6 different systems, none of which were compatible with others, and the games were not cross-console like they are now. Dragon's Lair was an interactive film video game that released in 1983 and was animated by Don Bluth. Arcade operators at its release reported long lines, even though the game was the first video arcade game to cost 50 cents. Zork started out as a text adventure game that was first released in 1977 by Infocom, which would later be Activision. The 90s saw a rise in computer gaming with iconic titles like Age of Empires, Warcraft, The Sims, Diablo, and Myst. Myst, released in 1993, has been cited as one of the most influential and best video games ever made and was the best-selling PC game for almost a decade. Diablo premiered in 1997 and has since spawned several sequels. Also on display are several collaborations and special editions across different gaming systems. The Halcyon was a home video game console that was planned to be released in 1985, with the initial retail price for the system being $2,500, which is equivalent to just under $7,500 today. No wonder it never caught on. Fewer than a dozen units are known to exist, and it never reached most retailers because of a lack of affordable disc players. The design featured a Laserdisc player and an attached computer. There were 6 games planned for release, but only 2 games actually got made, one of which was Thayer's Quest. Since the console was not popular, Thayer's Quest was later released in arcades as a conversion kit for Dragon's Lair and Space Ace. Its animation and other elements were reused in newer games as well. Pokemon. What else is there to say? This legendary franchise got its start in Japan in 1996 and has become a worldwide sensation. It's estimated to be the world's highest grossing media franchise, with the video games in particular being among the best selling. That brings us to an end of this travel video. We'll leave you with the art installation at the front of the museum featuring consoles and 80s and 90s pop culture. Until next time, travelers!